the comb of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Other people say that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam dropped it, and this Labid bin Asim by chance happened to pick it up. Whatever. He got hold of the comb of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he made 11 knots with those strands of hair inside his comb. Inside every knot, he recited certain words which for centuries were used by the people of his kind to have an effect upon the person whose comb and whose hair it was. Now one may say that, you know what, the comb is not living. The hair has been disattached from the body of a person. How could something that is disattached from the body of the person still have connection with the person who's still alive? Now in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that may have been very difficult to explain. But nowadays we know it very well, that something could have exited your body years before, but still has a link to the living body right then and there. How many people who in this world have been donors of eggs or sperm, the original donor may be dead, but that remnant of their body which exited maybe a decade ago or 50 years ago is unfrozen, and the child of that individual is still born, hale and healthy. Where's the father? He died 50 years ago before the child was actually born. It happens. DNA pulled out of tombs have an effect and show us things of the people that lived in the past. Now, that was a time, in the time of Rasulullah, that wasn't a time of science to the extent that people would be working in a lab and looking at things under a microscope, but they knew one thing, that whatever exits the human body still keeps some contact with that one or that person who's still alive. And this was a centuries-old tradition. Labid bin Asim got hold of that comb. He tied 11 knots inside that comb. What he actually recited, we will never know, for he kept it a secret. But those people who practice it know exactly what to say and what will have an effect inside the knot and inside that hair. He took a needle and he put it right in the middle of all those knots that he made. And every time, this was of course a very tedious task that he did. He didn't do it overnight. It took him a long time to figure it out and to get the right equation. Every time a needle would go inside one of those knots, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who's of course at home, was becoming weaker and weaker, and he was becoming more fatigued every time he practiced an act of that witchcraft, until he had completed all 11 knots and that needle had penetrated all those knots. He took that comb and he buried it at the bottom of Bir Zarwan, which is a well on the outskirts of Medina to Tayyibah, to make sure that nobody will lay hands on it. He covered the thing up inside a date palm fiber bag. He put that date palm fiber bag under a stone in the bottom of a well that was dysfunctional and nobody was using. Under the circumstances or under the thought that, you know what, as long as nobody touches it, he will remain uncured. This started a very difficult 6 months for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He started becoming forgetful, to the extent that Aisha radiallahu anha said that he would come to the masjid, pray a salah, go back home, think that he did not pray, and come back. People started getting worried that he was just here right now for Asr salah. He had showed up again thinking that Asr was not done, but he was here a while ago. And this started getting progressively worse until Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had difficulty even starting off the day and starting off the morning. In that state, after 6 months of being in this position, he sees a dream. And that dream, as narrated in Muslim Sharif, what happens is that one angel comes to the head side of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the other to the foot side. And the one at the foot side is asking the one at the head side that, "Ma bi hadha rajul," what has happened to this person? And the response the other angel is giving, mashhoor, he has been afflicted by sihr and by witchcraft. Who did this? And the other one responds, Labid bin A'sam. Where is the result, or where is the product of what he did? It's at the bottom of Bir Darwan. And as soon as Rasulullah hears this, he gets up. And he sends a group of companions right to that well. They descend to the bottom, pick up that comb, bring it back home, and upon this, قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ and قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ are revealed. Rasulullah looks at that entire contraption. This is not from a Halloween movie. He looks at this entire contraption, and as he takes out one portion of that needle from that knot, he recites the Ma'awwadatayn, قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ and قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ, which are known together as the Ma'awwadatayn. He recites them, and as he comes right to the end, he becomes completely relieved, as if nothing had ever happened to him, and nothing was ever, wrong with him to begin with. Regarding that person who was responsible for that entire episode, when the Sahaba radiallahu anhum somehow came to know that it was him, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was of course approached by them and give us an opportunity to kill him. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, no, that I have never taken revenge for myself, which was true. Never in his personal capacity did Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam ever take revenge for a harm or an injustice done directly to him. Even when that lady tried to poison him in Khaybar, he let her go. Only when a few days later the companion who had also eaten from that meat died, it now became a regular murder case, and she was executed because she killed somebody else, not Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And another very important reason is that, you see, Islam is based, and the hudud in particular, the laws, are based on aspects of the faith which are tangible and proven. How are you going to prove that this particular person did it? There's no fingerprints. How do you prove that this was his intent to kill, to harm, or what was his intent? It is something which is very vague and cannot be proven at all. Therefore, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam set a trend that there will be certain people who do things in this world that have a negative effect on a person. Your response to them is to forgive them, and your response is to consider what happened to be a test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is one or another aspect of sihr. One aspect, as we discussed earlier on, which is known as takhayyul, wherein you actually see something, but it's something else, like the magicians at the time of Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. The second, as we just rounded off and mentioned right now, is where you actually use incantations, or you use an element, a juz, a part of a person who's still alive to have a negative effect on that person. A third system known as the ayn, the eye of a person. Now this is a type of sihr which has an effect, but for the most part it is an involuntary action. Once when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was in the masjid, a crowd came to him. What was the reason of that crowd coming? That there was a person who, while undressing, somebody made a comment that what a good muscular body you have. And this person who was undressing, of course he had his bottom cloth and he was changing his shirt. The person who was undressing, he fell down there and there, unconscious. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned, "Asabatul ayn." The eye of this person or another person has fallen upon him, and as a result, that is the effect of the eye of a person. So somebody asked, that is it possible that the eye of a person could be so strong and capable that it floors somebody then and there? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, yes, al-aynu haqqun, that the eye of somebody is true. And whenever you see something or somebody that you are attracted to the property of that person, or you like the the look of that person, even your own child, in order to deflect the eye away from that person, you should say, MashaAllah. Whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wished, your saying of MashaAllah will deflect the effect of your eye away from that person, because you attributed the beauty not to that person but to Allah. MashaAllah, what Allah wishes. So you are beautiful, you are good looking because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made you so. This is beautiful, this is pretty, your dress looks good, you know, your work looks good. Why? MashaAllah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it so. When you deflect your eye away from that actual thing, you now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saves the property of that particular person. That's another effect of the ayn of the eye, of a type of sihr and a type of witchcraft. So far, we have discussed a number. Now regarding this particular aspect that happened to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, wherein he was bewitched and this particular individual harmed him in that way, and where قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ and قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ were revealed, this revelation of قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ and Nas is not particularly regarding sihr and witchcraft, but rather Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was noted to recite these two surahs on all circumstances and occasions whenever he was in a state of fear. Like at the time of darkness, once there was an eclipse in Medina and no moon for that night, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gets up on the musalla and he recites these two surahs. He encourages the people to recite. Aisha radiallahu anha says that never would Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam go to sleep during the night or before the night, except that he would recite these two surahs and blow on his palms in such a way that it would encompass his entire body except the private area. And he would tell the Sahaba radiallahu anhu that whoever does so, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will protect them min sharri ma khalaq, from whatever evil Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created on the surface of the earth. Whether it is a macro evil, like a rogue or a robber coming knocking on your door, or rather busting through your door, or whether it is a micro evil, something that you can't see, like the sihr issue. Whatever it is, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promises that whoever recites it and rubs it on their body, they will be saved throughout the entire course of the night. According to the motto of Imam Malik rahmatullahi alayhi, used to do during the day as well. That after Fajr Salah, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would rub that ma'awwadatayn on his body, and this would serve as a source of protection for him during the hours of the day. When Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was approached by people that I'm concerned for my child. Now the child cannot recite Quran. What are the parents supposed to do? He would encourage them that you recite it and you blow on your own palms and you rub it over the body of the child that is not in a position to do so. That will serve as protection from them. At the time of the passing of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, wherein Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was experiencing the pangs and the pains of death, Aisha radiallahu anha says that when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was too weak to recite, he would recite part of the surah, ask me to recite the other part of the surah, or towards the end I would recite the entire surah, and he would tell me that rub your hands over my body. What I would do is that I would recite the surah and I would blow in the palms of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and I would make his palms rub over his own body, for his palms are way better than my palms, and his body is way better. You know, it's not suitable for me to touch. Rather, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I would do this, that I would blow into his palms and I would rub it over his entire body as a source of protection. Once Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned that you desire protection from whatever is evil inside the world, recite these words.